so we can share the details and data at a later date with you all. Okay, hopefully you can all see the screen and it's all coming through loud and clear. Just a couple of things before I kick off. I'm Mark Bashford. I'm the director and owner, along with Gabriel Murray, of the Lift Consultancy. We will be taking questions, but not via the chat. There is a section in here called Q&A. If you have a question, please type it in the box. And whilst we are going through the presentations, we will try and pick up those questions. If not, we will come back to you after we've finished the presentations that we have for you. So just to kick off, I'm going to run through a couple of slides just to give you some background on who we are. So we're the Lift Consultancy, as you can see, and we've got nationwide coverage. These are the presenters today. There's myself, Gabriel Murray, Mark Bashford. I'm the good-looking one, by the way. I'm just going to say that, but we'll just continue. Dennis Major and Matt Thompson. So, what's next? Introduction to CLC, our service and UK coverage. We have LiftEnergy Plus IoT monitoring device which will be presented by Gabriel. Lift traffic analysis, how to get the best from it. That'll be presented by my good self. Why do you need a lift consultant? A case study. This will come from Dennis. Current and future trends in lift technology. There is a mixture. There's myself, Matt, and Dennis will be involved in presenting that to you. And now I'm going to hand over to Gabriel Murray to run through the Lift Consultancy.
Hi there. So it's a quick run through, give you an overview of our consultancy. Bit about what we do, why we do it, how we do it, who we do it for, and then Dennis is going to talk for several minutes on the local operation, Midlands, North and Scotland. So the Lift Consultancy, all things lifts and escalators. We thought long and hard about why we do what we do, and we decided that it's just because we're kind of, I'm not going to say love, that's a strong word, but we are pretty passionate about lifts and escalators, and most of us had decades in the industry. And basic job satisfaction, we like what we do, and we get a great deal of satisfaction from doing that and helping clients with their lift issues, lift challenges, lift and escalator challenges. That's us. That's why we do what we do. So our modus operandi: building sustainable long-term relationships. We first started 13 or so years ago, and within literally 18 months, we realised that most of our business was coming from a very few clients, and it's the old 80-20 rule, more or less. 80% of our business from 20% of our clients. So we quickly understood that, and I guess we knew that to some extent anyway. You know, consultancy is a relationship business built on some basic principles: trust, collaboration, and openness. We try to be very collaborative, very approachable, and certainly our clients say that about us. And testament, I guess, is that we did some analysis a year or so ago, and we found out that about 90% of our clients are essentially repeat business. Whether we've got a long-term relationship with them, they give us work week to week, month to month, or smaller clients who just come back to us maybe once every 6 months or once every year. But actually, you know, a very high proportion of our work is repeat business. And simply put, that's delivering what they need and regularly exceeding their expectations. You know, very simple, straightforward, and that's how we've managed to grow our business to where it is today. What do we do? Without giving you a list of all our services, which is available on the website, broadly, we give dependable, creative input to your project, however large or small. And we do that on pretty much anything to do, any type of vertical transportation, platform lifts, escalators, travelators, lifts, escalators, we cover it all. We've grown to 16. We're not all on there. There's one missing. We haven't added her on yet. But that's us. And what are we made up of? Ex-MDs of lift companies, ex-MDs of component supply, ex-insurance inspectors, lots of exes, long-standing industry veterans, certainly lots of those, not with a few years experience, but with a few decades of experience. And several up-and-comers. And that essentially gives us breadth and depth. So one of the things that we bring to the table about rather involved in the technical consultancy is our knowledge of the industry. So we understand the people, we understand how it works, and we have very good high-level contacts in pretty much all of the lift companies, big or small. So often if got a particular problem on a project, the local team aren't getting it done, there's a log jam, there's something going on, quick call to the director of the company, things start moving. So we have that between us, we have that breadth and depth of knowledge of the industry and how it works and the people in it. So who are our clients? Well, essentially we work across all sectors, commercial, residential, retail, commercial, infrastructure, leisure, and we have national coverage. So we set up for nationals. It was quite a tenet of when we started the company. We wanted to grow quickly to get national so we could serve national clients, but equally we serve regional and local clients equally as much. And there's just a few brand names, which I'm sure you'll be aware of, but there are many, many more. And if you're not sure, ask us. We may well have worked for you. And we've got plenty of references which are available on request. So where are we today? National, 5 offices, a dozen or so consultants spread across the country. The logos, TLC logos are the offices. The yellow logos are the home bases of our consultants. Culture is important to us. We have a strong culture, dynamic culture, approachable culture. We're also a responsible business. Although small, we take our responsibilities seriously. For example, on our ESG, environmental and social governance, we looked at our carbon footprint last year, and by the end of the year, we decided to go carbon neutral, so we're offsetting. And we've also got a carbon reduction target with an organisation, one of the gold standard organisations called the Science-Based Targets Initiative, that have given us a target for reducing our carbon over the next few years. In terms of wellness of our people, we run regular webinars internally. We bring in external providers, and most recently and currently we're running essentially a mental health seminar. So we do take our responsibilities seriously. And we continue to steadily grow with our clients. And as I mentioned earlier, 90% of our work is from repeat business. And just to demonstrate the coverage we've got, we all use digital devices, timekeeping devices, which are geolocatable. And we took the data from those and looked at 2024 from January to August, where our consultants had travelled, and put together a little heat map. So a short video just builds up as consultants are added, predominantly where they've travelled. So a bit of a spaghetti junction, but as you can see, demonstrates, we definitely have UK coverage, and we drop across to Northern Ireland and to Ireland occasionally, and occasionally to Western Europe, depending on what our clients need from us. So we like to say nationwide coverage, local service. Okay, I'm going to hand you over to Dennis, and he's going to talk to you for several minutes about our more local operation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today to talk about myself for several minutes. Don't think that's enough time for that. I think from there, seeing as it's one of my favourite subjects, but we'll move swiftly on and keep it
More of
professional.
this later.
Yeah, through from there. So, that says this event today. Obviously, we're doing it online, but it's been held in Manchester, and that's where I've got this hub of where we cover a very busy and diverse portfolio of business. Manchester's obviously been one of those cities that has had seen significant investment in urbanisation. So obviously we're available and have the last 5 years I've been working steadily within the TLC to obviously move this area on and develop the resources to meet the client requirements for it. So as Gabriel stated previously, there's a lot of X's here through from here. And obviously two of them are on this particular slide here. So Matt Thompson and myself, we're the sort of the key consultants that are providing the relevant services that we can from new development through to modernisation, replacement of existing lifts in buildings, maintenance management. We have the resources and the skill sets to be able to provide that, and we're supported by the national team, but also by another more regional team closer together that we use between us to obviously guarantee that we've got familiar faces to provide that service going forward. So backgrounds of it, both Matt and I have worked at previous companies before, so there's we have a shorthand. We know how each other work, how we think. So there's consistency regardless of which one of us may be potentially dealing with. It can be what we provide is pretty interchangeable there to provide consistency for clients regardless of who you're dealing with at the time. So the great thing about TLC is that across the range that we've all got the overview and the skill sets to be able to provide these services, but we've also got elements where we specialize in it, where we can tap into people's key skills. Obviously, Matt and I's background, as well as being working for manufacturers of components, have obviously worked for lift companies as well. So we understand the challenges that they would have going forward. We obviously have dealt with a lot of lift contractors from the component element of it through from there. So we're very well versed and have very good contacts in the area with the contractors that can provide you with the right service. And we have very good relationships with them, so we can talk to them on a regular basis if there are any issues going forward, which obviously we try our best to support to avoid that from happening. So from a point of view of the main two faces that you deal with for this particular area, it'll be Matt and myself. But we're supported by colleagues that are a little bit further afield, but have the ability to support us with the workload that we have and can cope with. So Murray Cameron, he's based in Glasgow, he's covering our Scotland region, but also provides valuable input on traffic analysis. He works in quite closely with us to help with the design development, provides us with that information and the run through. So his particular support there is valuable, but also in return we provide it. We have clients who are maybe not based in Scotland, but obviously need a resource there. Obviously, we've got Murray available to do that, and in turn, we can support Murray with whatever he needs going forward through from there, and that also includes boots on the ground if need be. Steve Smith. Steve is an ex-managing director of a lift company, so again, he knows the challenges that contractors face when dealing with consultants, and obviously the elements of helping us understand what challenges that they may face. He's also got very strong contractual and commercial understanding with the way the industry works, so he can obviously support the elements for clients with contracts, terms and conditions, etc. So he obviously has that background to be able to keep us all on the straight and narrow in that particular element. And obviously most important through from there is obviously having somebody with the practical and technical knowledge of having a test background, and that is our colleague Rob Lovett. He has for many years was the face of providing the field consultancy role in the Manchester area, but he obviously still supports us in that particular element, and obviously is our go-to with regards to certain technical elements that we might come across, especially as technology updates come through. He sees it on a daily basis, so obviously can provide us with the support there practically and obviously remotely as well. So we have got, well, they're not based in Manchester, these three guys, but because of their ability with the technology that we use, and obviously the ability still to be able to support physically with their presence, we've got a very, very strong regional team that can cover from Birmingham through to Scotland for any requirements you may have. And potentially you may not have those resources in those particular areas, but obviously we can support you as needed. So I think that was maybe not several minutes, but I will pass you back over to Gabriel now to continue with the rest of the presentations.
Thanks, Dennis. So that's our regional team, or one of our regional teams, certainly up in this end of the country. So that's us, the Lift Consultancy. Quick 20 minutes on the Lift Consultancy, nationwide coverage, local service. Clients small, medium, large. And I'm going to pause just for a couple of minutes to see if anyone wants to join for the start of the next presentation, which is due in 2 or 3 minutes' time. So I'll just pause for a couple of minutes and then we'll kick off that presentation. So next topic is LiftEnergy Plus, IoT monitoring device for energy reliability and trip data. That came about because over the last few years, many of our clients were coming to us, asking us about how they can address the carbon footprint of their building, and in particular, the carbon footprint and the energy consumption of their lifts. So we essentially developed ourselves with some partners a device that can measure the energy very precisely, and we match that with the usage. And we can also, if we can get a connection to the out of service signal of the control panel, we can also monitor the reliability. So LiftEnergy Plus, IoT monitoring device. What I'd like to do is to show you a short 2-minute explainer video, which is on the LiftEnergy Plus website. If you bear with me just a second, I'll just get that pulled up. Sorry for the delay, but that's shortly be coming up. So this is a short 2-minute explainer video about...
Step into the future of lift management with LiftEnergy Plus, revolutionizing how we perceive and manage lift operations. We thrive on delivering solutions that exceed expectations, harnessing our expertise, experience, and enthusiasm. Wondering if you could save energy on your lifts? Do you want complete transparency on lift reliability to keep your service provider accountable? Interested in understanding when and how much your lift is being used? With LiftEnergy Plus, we provide answers through precise energy monitoring, reliability tracking, and usage profiling. Our innovative solution leverages the power of the Internet of Things, unraveling the mystery of energy usage in lifts with continuous monitoring. Accurate monitoring reveals detailed usage and energy profiles over time, allowing for optimization to reduce energy consumption. LiftEnergy Plus meticulously notes every downtime, offering a clear view of lift availability, enabling proactive maintenance and enhancing service availability. Empowerment lies at its core, with insightful data accessible through a secure client dashboard, enabling informed decisions that can lead to energy savings and promote sustainability. Enjoy the benefits of LiftEnergy Plus with quick, simple installation at a relatively low cost. Compatible with a majority of lifts regardless of manufacturer and service provider. Equipped with Wi-Fi and GSM connectivity for seamless integration. LiftEnergy Plus represents a new horizon in lift management, where every piece of data is a step towards optimization, sustainability, and improved reliability. It's not just a product. It's a pathway to a more efficient, reliable, and sustainable future. Available now as an add-on to our consultancy services and through selected distributors with direct purchase from this website in early 2025. Experience the power of LiftEnergy Plus today. Insightful data at your fingertips. Contact us to learn more and take the first steps towards more informed lift management.
So that's a little explainer about LiftEnergy Plus. It's essentially an IoT box of electronics, IoT Wi-Fi enabled, that connects to an energy meter that connects to your lift. And then every time the lift starts, the device times and date stamps that, and we essentially count the lift starts, and we can then build up a profile of energy consumption over time, but also a profile of lift usage in terms of the number of starts. And as I say, if we can get a simple 2-wire connection to the out of service signal of the control panel, that will also monitor when the lift is in and out of service. Here's one that's installed. This one's been installed for about 6 months. It's in a central London office. I've got a short video just to talk you through it, so I will just get that going. This is a NEW lift control panel. These control panels are quite large, so we have had space to fit both the energy meter and the IoT device on DIN rails. This is the energy meter. We've got supplies, connections in parallel to the mains, and then we've got these are connections for current clamps over the mains, which are part of the controller. And then this is version 1 of the IoT device. Developed that version 2, which is more compact. On the version 1, this device powered directly from a plug, whereas with version 2 takes the power from the connection from the energy meter. So as I say, on this NEW control panel, everything's nice and neat because we've got plenty of space in the control panel. On other panels, this can be on a DIN rail and it could be on the side of the control panel. We just put another section of DIN rail, and the version 2 of this device is not DIN rail mounted. We can only try and fit it on the side of the control panel. So that's just I'll just make sure I'm presenting you the right thing here. Oh, sorry, skip back somewhere. Let me just whiz forward. So that's the IoT device with energy meter all installed on an installation. And just on that installation, just went through that video. Since then, that device has been updated to the version 2 of the device, which is just sits on the bottom of the control panel. Same energy meter, it's the same installation, this one. And the principal difference is instead of taking an independent supply plugged in from a power supply, it takes the supply across 2 phases of the input to the energy meter. So that's really the only difference. So we're measuring lift starts, we're building up a profile of energy usage, we're using that also to build up a profile of the lift usage. And if it's connected to the out of service signal, we're monitoring the in and out of service. And that information is available on a portal, fully secure, hosted on Amazon Web Services, accessible worldwide. We have some devices connected through the local Wi-Fi if it's available. We have some devices connected on GSM. The GSM SIMs we use are with a service that covers, I think it's 162 countries nationwide, and particularly important, they have agreements with all the network providers. So it doesn't matter whether it's EE or Vodafone or Orange or whatever, it will connect to the strongest available signal. So that's how they connect. From a client point of view, client and client admin role, so clients can manage who can see what data on the lifts that they're monitoring within the portfolio of lifts. So if you might have a hotel group engineer who's responsible for several hotels, he can then manage those hotels, so the local hotel managers only see the data for those hotels. So I will jump into and show you. I think I might need to share my screen again. Right, so this is a portal. This is a although it's a dummy logging in the sense that it's just for demonstration purposes, it is looking at 3 buildings which are live at the moment with devices fitted. I've changed the names of those buildings to give them generic names for client confidentiality. So we've got a shopping centre, an office building, and a 4-star hotel. So looking at the shopping centre, we've got several lifts installed. Actually, that's a program of lifts that we're modernising, or we're acting the consultancy for that client to modernise those lifts, and 2 of those lifts are out of service being modernised at the moment. And we've had the devices on, and when the modernisation is completed, we'll put them on at the end. So here's PR1, quite old, these lifts, 22, 23 years old. We haven't got a connection to the out of service signal. The portal gives you the monthly energy consumption in the graph on the left, and that tabulates that on the right. And if we have the cost per kilowatt that the client is paying, we can plug that in and you can see the cost. Although, having said that, traction lifts are very efficient, and depending on the usage levels, you know, the energy costs will vary. You know, intensely used in lightly used buildings, you know, actually lifts don't use all that much energy, but in more intensely used lifts in buildings use a lot more. So this is this particular one. This lift's been out of service for a while, so there's a big gap there, but we're not monitoring out of service. And then let's have a look at, it shows the monthly journeys. It shows the journeys within a month, and then, you know, here's today as of the 12th of September. Click on that, it will show us the daily journeys up to 1 o'clock, you know, an hour ago. This part down here is about monitoring the in and out of service, but this lift is not connected, so I'll show you a lift that is connected. So we've got a shopping centre. We've got an office building, busy office building connected in central London, and been connected for 6 or 7 months. And looking at the journey profiles for the 4th of September, let's say, you can see 8 o'clock rush hour starts, drops off a little bit, picks up again at lunchtime, and then actually gradually reduces as the building goes. So we can get a good understanding of the usage patterns within the building. So I'd like to show you the final one we got on there, which is the hotel. And I'm going to pick that lift. And the reason I'm going to pick that lift, this lift is connected to the out of service signal. So we've got, you know, it's monitoring data up till now. It's continually monitoring. If we look at a particular month, and we can see a general pattern throughout the month, and then a big drop off in some months. So we can drill into, let's pick the 6th of August, for example, and we look at the day of the 6th of August, and we can see that we've got so usage picking up at 9 o'clock, then between 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock, no usage at all. So we can then use a service uptime monitor. We can drill into whichever time scale we want. So in this case, we'll drill into 9 till, did I say 9 till 3? No, did I say 9 till 12? Oh, I've got to get the date right, put the right date in. 6th of August, I hear whispered in my ear. Let me get this right. Yeah, that's it, 6th of August. That's 6th of August? Yeah. Yeah, so between 9 and 12 on the 6th of August, we had a breakdown, 9:19, 7 minutes, and then it glitched, something glitched, and it's gone out for 2.5 hours before it's gone back into service. So it doesn't give any details of the breakdown. It just gives us purely when it's in and out of service, but that's completely unfiltered. It's not coming from the lift company. It's not coming from anywhere else. It's coming direct from the control panel. When the lift is not available for service, that's going to show up. So that is the portal. Some of the benefits of the device, as I say, it monitors reliability, trip data, and energy usage. How we're using that reliability tracking at the moment is essentially it gives complete transparency, and it allows holding service provider to account. So as I say, you're not filtering the information you're getting about reliability, you're seeing the reliability. And as we do with a couple of our clients, we tie that into the service contract. So we can then say, you know, not X breakdowns, where we say, you know, we want our lift in service for particular times of day, and we want, say, a 97% reliability during those times. And this gives a tool to measure it, so we can then put a KPI on it in terms of the maintenance contract. And importantly, depending on the type of building, office, you know, it's busy in the rush hour, busy in lunchtime, busy in the evening. And, you know, I often say, you know, definitely don't service your lifts in those periods, but, you know, in the middle of the morning or the middle of the afternoon, it doesn't really matter if a lift breaks down. The impact on service is going to be minimal, but it matters if it breaks down in a rush hour. So tailor your service contract, put your KPIs in there, use the monitoring device to demonstrate the reliability when you need the lift. And another instance is a hotel. The busy times in a hotel are classically breakfast. People coming down to breakfast, going back to their room, checking out, and in the afternoon, early evening, where they're checking in. And then another couple of usages, which are different patterns. Retail customers generally, throughout the day, but we work with some big retailers and goods lifts. They're probably off for 24 hours. They're probably not being used for 20 hours a day, but for those few hours they are used, lorries turn up with the goods, they have to be in service. So it's critical. You want reliability within those hours, and this device gives you a way of monitoring precisely that, and as I say, tying it into your maintenance contract. So some other benefits: reducing carbon footprint. The device itself won't reduce energy for you, but it will give you an idea of the usage patterns, which if you can then optimize, if you optimize the usage patterns, you can then optimize your energy usage. As you're probably aware, we have global targets. Everyone has global targets for reducing the carbon output in 2050 to the same as it was in 1990. We're approximately half the way there. And the built environment accounts for about 40% of carbon emissions. And lifts, although quite small, anywhere from 2 to 5% of a building, depending how many lifts, how intensely they're used, at the energy consumption of buildings. So they're all, although they're quite small, Sir David Brailsford, ex-director of the Sky cycling sports team, his principle is the aggregation of marginal gains. You do what you can on all the areas you can. Once they all add up, you're going to get some significant energy savings. So look at your lifts, find out what energy savings you can make on those lifts, make those energy savings, make them elsewhere in the building, and overall, you're going to start reducing carbon emissions of buildings. By way of example, this is the lift that I showed you earlier on the portal. This is a busy office in central London. This is a snapshot of the journeys, classic weekday journeys, during the week busy, weekends practically nothing. And classic kind of post-COVID operation is Tuesday, Wednesday, Twitter, we call it, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, less traffic on a Monday and a Friday. And we've got traffic of, getting on for 1,100, north of 1,100, getting on for 1,200 journeys on average on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Fridays, the average is dropping down heavily, less than 700. This lift is part of a 4-car group. So it might be reasonable to assume that if we take one lift out of service on a Friday, every Friday, we're going to reduce our energy consumption. These particular lifts have destination control, so we'd expect to see energy savings overall doing this with minimum loss of service. So it's really just about understanding your energy usage, seeing if you can optimize it, and if you can optimize it, that's going to, understanding your lift usage. If you can then optimize that, you can reduce your energy consumption. Another benefit of the monitoring device is to assess return on investment of energy saving devices. Two of the classic ones in the market that have been in the market for quite a long time now are, on the left, a regen device, and on the right, a bank of supercapacitors. So lifts become, when you've got a full car going down or an empty car going up, you're actually generating electricity, and with the regen device, that electricity is put back into the mains. With the supercapacitors, that electricity is put back into a bank of capacitors, and it's fed back into the lift when it needs it. So how does the monitoring device help with this? These devices cost money, and you could put on one of the monitoring devices pre-installing an energy-saving device and post-installing the energy-saving device, and you can then see how much energy saving the devices actually make. Put a number on that, you get a cost, how much they're saving, relate that to the cost of the device, and you can then work out the cost, the return of investment on a particular device. So intensely used building, some supercapacitors might cost you £2,000. You get payback. You can work out your payback. So it can be used for that as well. And one of the things we're using it on half a dozen sites at the moment is we put them on pre-modernisation. The shopping centre I showed you earlier, they're during modernisation, and we'll put them on after modernisation, and we'll see what the difference in energy consumption is pre and post modernisation. We've got a few thoughts that are in the pipeline of where we can take this device at the moment. Mileage, as well as measuring lift starts, we can start measuring lift stops, and then we can get the journey time. And like a car, lift starts and mileage are going to be a factor in the wear. So if we can start measuring that, we can get an idea that can give us some information about how much mileage, in inverted commas, lift is doing. Adding floor information. So instead of just measuring all the starts, we then relate them to floors. We can see the busy floors, the quiet floors, and that gives us some more interesting information about the patterns of flow in the building. And another area we're looking at is potentially getting car load information into the device, so we can then see how many people at what floors and how frequently the lift is stopping and starting at floors. So final slide is on services and pricing. Presently, it's an add-on to existing consultancy services. So, as I mentioned earlier, we'll put it on pre and post modernisation or replacement. So we'll put it on for 3 months before, measure the energy consumption, look at the usage patterns, measure the reliability, and then we'll put it on when the work has been completed, and we can then compare energy, usage patterns and reliability, and that can give us some interesting information that can potentially demonstrate a positive feedback to the client who's paid for that modernisation. Also using it for specific facility feasibility studies. We've installed one of our clients' busy hotel chain in a particularly busy hotel. They've got a 4-car group of lifts that get very intensive use, particularly at breakfast time. And they've asked us to put on these devices. We put them on a few weeks ago, and that will understand the traffic patterns. And then we're going to carry out a study where we can implement some control measures, such as full load bypass or 70% load bypass. So when lifts fall, they stops taking calls, and we can see the impact in terms of the number of journeys. The plan is to have this available for purchase direct from the website in early part of 2025. And we'll publish prices at the time, but it's likely to be about £900 a unit. And that includes the IoT device, the energy meter, all cabling required, and 12 months portable access. And we're using our own field consultants at the moment to install them, but we have had a couple of sites where lift companies' engineers have installed them, and we're estimated about 1.5 to 2 hours to install. So fairly straightforward to install. So that's LiftEnergy Plus, IoT monitoring device, electronic box of tricks, connected to an energy meter, connected to a lift, giving you reliability data, energy usage, and lift usage profiling. There's a website for that. More information is available on the website. If you've got any queries, please go to that website. There's a feedback form on that. And yes, that's LiftEnergy Plus. Thank you very much. I will pass you over to Mark for the next slide on traffic analysis.
Thanks, Gabriel. As Gabriel said, we are going to cover something on lift traffic analysis. Now, this isn't going to bore you. I'm not going to sit here and run a TA for you, but what we are looking to do is give you some ideas of the pitfalls and the fourballs that seem to be thrown at us as we go through various design data. So we're going to try and cover like the common misconceptions on buildings, residential and commercial. Speed resolves the issue, never the case. Removing lifts to allow more rooms, net internal area resolves one issue, but obviously your building, will it work with regards to the VT? Does Hall Call Destination resolve traffic and should we actually fit it? When should you check the lift traffic? And BCL SIBC, which one do I need to comply? Do I need to comply? So as you can see, I feel the need for speed. Well, yes, speed resolves some issues, predominantly height. We don't just put in lifts that are super fast because on a theoretical analysis on Elevate or a traffic analysis tool that we use to assist us to evaluate the traffic in a building, it's theoretical. So when you put it in, if you have a 5-story building, you put it in 10 meters a second, the tools that we have will allow you to do that. Now, if you actually take that into real life, it would A, never get to 10 meters a second, and B, even if it did, you'd have a lot of very sick people getting out at the end of it. The lift would have to accelerate so fast that nobody could actually withstand that speed. So you have to look at the comfort and the overall journey experience. It's not just get me to my floor. You want to get there safely and feel like you've had a journey that you haven't disliked, for want of a better word. So when you're asked, just speed the lifts up, isn't the case. It's generally speaking, it's about capacity of the lifts. So we may have a building that has, 13-person lifts in it, for argument's sake. It only has 2 at the moment. You run the traffic analysis and it doesn't work. And you feed that back to the client. And you then look and say, well, actually, what we need is 3 10-persons or something simple. You actually need more lifts, but not necessarily bigger. It's all to do with the capacity of the lifts and moving people around efficiently. We don't just go in and speed the lifts up. Unfortunately, it's just not that simple. The next bit is certainly for architects and developers, is the space you sell worth the wait? Now, this is very poignant. Obviously, space is money, okay? In London, your square foot price is what, £1,500 per square foot, something like that you're selling the building for. So if we are taking up that space with core for the lifts, so that it's non-lettable space, of course, the easiest way to look at that, if you're needing more money out of the building to make it work, would be to look at reducing the lifts, look at reducing the number of lifts, certainly. Now, this is where you see some buildings that might stagger the lifts. So you might see some buildings that are 20 stories, they've got 8 lifts, but only 2 of them go to the top floor. Then as you come down a few floors, you'll start seeing the group split up, okay? But essentially, what you must always do is check, because you can't just remove the lift to resolve your internal area issue or your room layouts or anything like that. Well, sorry, you can, but what you'll end up doing is effectively ruining the VT if you're taking away the core. So we are always squeezed. That's the fact. We don't provide anything valuable in the sense of net internal area or rooms. We're eating that. So we are always pushed and always looked to reduce the number of lifts, the size of the lifts, etc. Which is where, going back to the last question, can we just speed them up, comes in a lot. You reduce them and then you speed them up. That's what you're asked to do. But as I said before, it's about the capacity. You don't want to be selling a 20-story building and then having to wait 15 minutes for a lift to get up the building. You'll have a queue around the building with a lot of angry people. So you must always look to reducing the VT. You do run the risk of longer waiting times. But also if you have no redundancy in the system and you lose a lift, you're going to end up with queues around the building, So it's like a yin and yang, We can do what we can, but sometimes we just, it just needs that number of lifts to operate. Hall call myths and legends. So a lot of people believe that with the invention of hall call destination, it resolved the issues of waiting time. It doesn't. I have to very hastily add. In fact, with hall call destination, what you may end up doing is actually increasing your waiting time. But hall call destination isn't about your waiting time per se. It's more to do with the overall journey around your building. So it may make you wait slightly longer, but you arrive at your destination faster because you're grouping together. The lift's not stopping as many times. This comes apparent in the IoT energy device as well, because if you're not making stop, start, you won't actually be, when the lift starts, it pulls the maximum current. Okay. So in effect, you can lower your energy by fitting hall call destination. But just because it's there and just because it has some very good aspects to it, doesn't mean you should necessarily fit it. You must check the traffic analysis to see if it's actually beneficial. It's not cheap, hall call destination, and it will end up, costing you a lot of money for no apparent reason. We see it, we have seen it, I should say, in some buildings where it's a duplex pair, okay? Hall call destination does not work very well on a duplex, okay? It requires more lifts. The minimum you should be looking at is 3 as a general rule of thumb. I'm not saying that across every single design, but that's what you should be looking at. We have seen it fitted in residential buildings of late, okay? That is quite a bold move. These sorts of buildings require a certain aspect of knowledge to operate, shall we say, and regular use. Residential use with kids and things like that, it's not always the best way to install, but it does offer some very interesting aspects in the sense of it can provide security. So one of the major manufacturers, Connie, uses it as a basis to get you into the building and move it around. They're putting it onto simplex lifts, but it's not adding you a benefit in traffic. It's adding another different benefit. So it's nothing to do with the traffic while it's fitted. So again, the myths and legends is really, it doesn't create and resolve all your traffic issues. Okay, you must analyze all the data you have. If it's a new development, that's sometimes easier to get hold of. But generally speaking, what you need to do is just run the traffic analysis on existing or a new development and see if hall call destination is right for you. So when should you call in the experts for this? As you can see by the slide, full permission given. Long before you have this document, that's for sure. The early planning of your calls is critical. If it goes out to planning and we haven't designed the calls correctly or your room layouts correctly, the massing, it's going to be incorrect. And we're going to have to go back and ask for that permission again, because we're going to add in another core or we're going to change it, etc. So we like to be involved in stage 1. Okay, the very, very early stages, we can set the cores, we can set the number of lifts. Okay, throughout the development of a new development type project, okay, there may be various increases and decreases in net internal area. That could be from the facade, it could be from the M&E guys taking up riser space. Every single time it moves, we have to check that the lift system is working correctly. That's an increase or decrease, because if it's decreasing far enough, can we get rid of a lift? Can we give you back some NIA? So it's a two-way street. But unless we're involved from the beginning, you're going to run a risk of us coming in at, let's say, stage 2 and go, well, that's not enough lifts, or they're not big enough, or, etc. So we just urge everyone to get us involved as early as they possibly can. So one to just finish up on is the codes which apply to me. SIBC, British Council of Offices, BCO. Okay. One is based predominantly around residential, but it also covers the office and other, like other is designed for commercial. SIBC is your residential, but it also covers the traffic on residential, office, hospitals, public spaces. However, BCO is the one that most marketing guys or any developer wants you to tick is a BCO compliant building for a commercial development. That's where you get your 25 seconds waiting time from and things like that. That is what they want you to adhere to. So if you're talking residential, we're going to be coming back to you saying about SIBC Guide D. And if you're talking the commercial side, it's going to be BCO. Okay. There are varying factors and there, also area, locational. There is transient offices. We're actually setting one now where it's a workspace where we hire out, different workspaces and things like that. Some days they're going to be really busy, other days they're not. But predominantly what we need to do is analyze the worst case scenario. And that is how we design the building. After that point, the client or the architect or whoever wants to make that choice, we can downgrade from there. But we have to start with the worst case. And these two documents are what we use to guide you in what we're actually saying about the development of your property. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Dennis now. I'm just going to give you a quick, I want to check the Q&A just in case we've got any questions in there. No, okay. But as I said at the beginning, if you need to write anything, please pop it into the question and answer session. And we will try as best as we can to answer these as we go through. So Dennis is going to take over and he's going to talk to you about a case study. So enjoy it and I will speak to you in a bit.
Thanks very much, Mark. So what I'm going to do is talk about a subject that I get asked a lot about. Why do I need you? Why do I need a lift consultant? Well, obviously we can, as you've seen by some of the previous presentations, we can espouse and all the qualities that we can bring to you. But at the end of from there, for an end user, client wants to do that, they want to know what value we can add to it. There's a number of elements about that. The biggest one obviously speaks with regards to savings and of costs. But ultimately is that providing that their investment, they get value from their investment as well as they don't have the issues to concern themselves that they how the project progresses, or if there are issues, they've got somebody that can also support them through from there. And that's where, from the point of view, there is what we come to this particular study is where, or is my example is by not using a lift consultant, how you can save yourself a substantial further investment after you've already made a significant one in a very short space of time. So I'd like to take you through this one. We were initially engaged by this client to look at what they needed to do to upgrade their lifts, and what the situation ended up being is that after initial discussions and doing a site survey for them, they decided to move forward directly with the lift contractor. And then at a certain point in the situation, we were called back in to support the process through it. So the project was for 4 lifts in a high-rise block, former social housing, now converted into private rentals, a very common sort of practice of converting existing buildings into these more higher-end rental spaces. The existing lifts, the equipment dated back to the original installation in the 1960s. Lifts had been modernised to minimum levels over the history of the building, but they were only reliability component failure upgrades. There wasn't really a significant improvement in the operation of the lifts. They were basically, the work was carried out just to keep them operational until the point where that wasn't possible. Reliability and safety were, big issues coming forward with regards to the codes. And the only way to achieve this was obviously to have a substantial investment in the lifts. So initially, we were asked to come involved to carry out condition surveys. And this is just to show you on these pictures here is obviously the actual lifts themselves, and obviously the age of the existing equipment. And as you can see from these images, we're looking at the original 1960s machine. Fantastic build quality, but as the old saying, they don't make them like they used to. But obviously, the point of view there is obviously, while testament to the build quality, obviously reaching the end of, far exceeded its operational life. Single panel opening doors, very much what you would find in a social housing environment. And as you can see from the side, the lift interior as well, particularly dated. It had been upgraded from the previous stainless steel finishes, but again, still a fairly dated approach to the appearance. But most critically, and the fact is, it was clear that the lifts weren't operating to their full capacity. There was issues with the lifts tripping out in travel. If there was more than 4 people in it, as you can see by this jury rig notice in there, the lift function, wasn't possible. And these were flats where there's a lot of people moving in and out, moving furniture, their possessions, etc. So you can imagine if one person's bringing a lot of possessions in and the lift malfunctioned when it was in travel, for a 23-story building, it would cause a lot of issues. Lifts they were only running at a contract speed of 1 meter per second, so they were slow. And basically, while there had been changes in the control systems and upgrades about it, a lot of the other elements to it, reducing the car capacity because there was the lift shaft that allowed a bigger lift to be fitted, but the way the design was, this would originally had like an access box at the back for goods, and unfortunately, it's a more dour nickname for it for a coffin box as an extension to the back of the lift, but not the full capacity of the lift. So there are a number of elements here that made these lifts ripe for upgrading. And obviously, we can, after our condition surveys, our recommendation about it, with the experience and backgrounds that we have within the lift consultancy, was to consider how do we achieve a 20 to 25 year lifespan for the new equipment that goes in. As I stated at the beginning, they don't build them like they used to, but there is a lot of equipment out there that is designed for high duty cycles, that is open protocol, which means it can be serviced by any company, and would give us the ability to produce a package that basically gave the client a similar service to what they've been expecting for their investment, where they weren't looking at anything substantial for at least 20 years. So to achieve that, our recommendation was to look at what we call a back to guides modernisation. The guides are obviously where the car and the counterbalance run on, and they will be the only substructure or infrastructure that will be left. But all the other components within the lift will be replaced. We'd look at increasing the car size, increasing the speed, making them applying energy efficiency equipment with permanent magnet motors. So obviously reducing what a gearbox is generating and the heat, etc., that would come from that. We'd look at retaining the single panel opening on it with new high efficiency doors that would reduce the potential for builders work, and also allow us to maximize the shaft with the depth to get the biggest capacity lift we could. So that was our recommendation through from there. And while we weren't looking at recreating an anti-vandal sort of element through it, because the building obviously didn't have that need anymore, having equipment with a very high specification would give us the ability over the full replacement of the equipment with machine roomless technology, which tends to be in a lot of cases a commodity product, which also it can be enhanced significantly, but that obviously comes with an enhanced cost. So our recommendation was to look at the modernisation as a means of doing so. The client decided from there to took on board it, had some discussions with lift contractors that they were dealing with as part of their portfolio, and they received back a bid for from a quotation. At this stage, normally we would recommend producing a performance specification and going through a tender process where an analysis could be done to ensure that the equipment supplied suited the application. The client already worked with a couple of lift contractors, decided to go directly to them, and obviously obtain quotations for full replacements. Then they did ask us then to analyse these offers, and as was pointed out to them, the offers made had some concerns with regards to the durability of the equipment. They were more a commodity product, and there were certain other elements that are outside the lift installation in regards to fire safety, builders work, storage elements through from there that weren't included in the quotation. So, and also there was no incorporation for elements relating to fire safety or fire evacuation for a lift with these travel. So we put forward this again. We suggested a performance specification and going through a tender process to get the best competitive prices. The client decided to decline that, and that was the last we heard of the project until 9 months later. The client's management team on site decided that they had some concerns with the progress of their interaction with the lift contractor, some of the feedback they were getting, and they also had some of the concerns about the variations in costs that were coming back through to them, and asked us to re-engage us to take an overview of the projects and see what we could do support to move it forward. So the first thing in this element through from there that we had to do was obviously engage with the lift contractor, and get some dialogue going with them. And surprise, surprise, our involvement was greeted with great enthusiasm. The way modern elements going on projects like this now, lift contractors now are very used to working to a performance specification. It provides them with a footprint to understand what they need to do, what they need to achieve, and what level of equipment they need to be providing. In that respect, because the responsibility for the design goes away from them, it becomes a joint element. And in the past, when we used to have companies that used to have in-house design teams for it, then there'd be less requirement for some of the elements that we can provide as consultants. And as we've said previously, there's a lot of design people that are involved in the lift consultancy field now. So they embraced our involvement, which was obviously very positive for us as well. But obviously there was a number of challenges that we confronted with. And the biggest challenge, of course, was that the equipment, while of a very good quality, wasn't fully suitable for the application. We weren't going to achieve with some of the elements of the equipment the 20 to 25 year lifespan and the robustness of the equipment to withstand people moving in and out of flats and taking furniture, etc., that's going to be needed. There were a lot of additional costs that weren't in the original bids, and there was also some elements of it that still hadn't been addressed, which we'll go through into the next slides from it. Biggest issue about it was the client basically took responsibility for the design by accepting the quotation. There was no contract in place. There was no KPIs in place for achieving it apart from the program. And obviously, the project management of it was there, or the elements that the client didn't have the capabilities to be able to understand quite rightly what the feedback was getting and whether or not it was accurate. So our next phase about this, obviously, to start to see what we can do involves obviously moving the project forward to be on time, and obviously looking at the installation process to see if we can bring any improvements there in conjunction with the lift contractor and their subcontractor. Certain elements about it, look, obviously is the installation quality and some of the elements about it, and some of the challenges that the contractor was having with the existing fabric of the building. Quite clearly here, there was some elements here that weren't going to be acceptable for support bracketry in this particular instance, and also some of the regards to the matching the infilling and the making good from a builder's point of view. There are elements here that we obviously provided a sort of measure of quality control and sort of accountability to say that what would be an acceptable standard. And this would have been reflected across our inspections of the progress with regards to the rest of the project. Some of the other elements that were through from there, there was obviously a facility for fire evacuation for one of the lifts based on advice from the fire officer. And as you can see from here, that implied obviously a secondary power supply, which is a generator, but then the building fabric having to be adapted to be able to fit it in. One of the key elements regards this obviously is making sure that even though the entrances for the lifts are fireproof, have a fire rating on there to make them fire resistant. The biggest issue about that is obviously the infrastructure of the building must match it. And in this case here, the replacement of the architraves that would provide that with the building fabric hadn't been agreed with the client. So while they were very necessary, it was another significant additional expense that they hadn't budgeted for. Things like some of the challenges that the contractor was having in regards to the design of the product that they've been supplied with. This was an independent company. They didn't manufacture the product. They would have gone to a manufacturing source to do this, which is very, very common indeed within the independent sector. So we were looking at discussing challenges, how to overcome some of the logistics with it and supporting the process, as well as advising the client why these challenges were in place and obviously managing their expectations as well as part of the process. And then just general sort of quality elements through from there, picking up on elements that might be damaged during the installation, which on a project such as this, you will get this over something that's going to run nearly over 12 months as a project. So the lifts were completed, and as you can see, compared to the previous pictures, we've got modern, clean, bigger lifts, durable lifts with stainless steel finishes. We've now got our architraves around there to supplement the new 2-panel openings they have here from it. So we've got a completed lift packages with modern technology, compliant to safety codes, and the lifts are faster, and the technology that's involved through from there, the lift service now is vastly superior to the original design. Elements of where we come into as well as after this point of view is obviously we will do a final inspection, and from the base of this we would look at, in conjunction with the lift contractors test department, look at making sure there was no outstanding items which would be covered or replaced during the warranty period or before the lift went into service. Some of them might be just general sort of housekeeping workmanship elements through from there that could do with improvements, picking up on components that maybe, or elements that maybe aren't fully operational. In this case, the fan, there was an issue with the circuitry for the fan on this particular machine out of the 4, or going through where the manufacturer's got an issue with some of their components and needed to be upgraded. Looking at general sort of elements that would affect the ride quality, in this case, marks on guides that could cause, could be felt by inside the lift car. And then compliance elements such as gaps around doors, because there's a regulation to achieve that. So these are some of the checks we would do and produce the snagging reports that the lift contractor would then clear through the either before the lift went into service or as part of the warranty maintenance period. And then also picking up on some elements with potentially as the lifts have gone into service after that, the inspections where, some final sort of aesthetic elements, just general configuration of certain components operationally. And then obviously the follow-up if there's any reliability issues after that, and the monitoring of the operation of the lifts to ensure that during the warranty period there's no defects that are not being addressed. So this is all part of the process, working with the lift contractor to provide a package back to the client through from there. So what improvements could we, as a lift consultant, made involved in this at the beginning, from the procurement process through from there, from where we were doing? The biggest element would have been ensuring the suitability of the equipment to meet the site application. Using a performance specification gives a blueprint then for contractors to work to make sure that we achieve the aims for the customer and their investment of reaching this 20 to 25 year lifespan that we were wanting to achieve. Part of the process when we get a specific, we get the tenders back on a competitive tender basis will be to vet the contractors' backgrounds, experience with these sort of projects, and also the fact to see whether or not they were using their own labour or subcontractors. And obviously, it's very important with projects like this to make sure that they've got the right background as well as the equipment to be able to do this type of work. This was one of the elements we did find as we went through this, that the contractor hadn't actually installed any machine roomless lifts with this type of travel before. So that was something that was obviously a factor that would have come out in the vetting process for discussion. We'd have ensured the full contract value was evident at the beginning. There was a lot of variations to this through there with the necessary costs that weren't apparent to the client at the beginning when they accepted the offer, but they were necessary for the client to fund them to be able to achieve it, the fireproofing and the secondary power supply for the fire evacuation element of it. So at this stage at the beginning, we'd have obviously detailed all that, ensured the costs were all covered. There were no surprises for the client as the project progressed, and obviously ensured that any necessary performance bonds and contracts were in place to protect the client. We'd have carried out a pre-start meeting to ensure that everybody understood, all the stakeholders understood what was required during the installation process and what KPIs were put in place to actually monitor the progress and against programs, and ensuring that if there were any disputes, that there was detailed record that to refer back to. Obviously, we did do the monitoring, the installation works, but as you can see, we're probably 4 elements past the point where we could have a significant influence in certain areas. And the biggest area we didn't have an influence on was the equipment level that was being used on the lifts. We had to make good with the project as we saw it, and obviously work with the lift contractor to ensure that the lifts were compliant and installed to a good standard, which they were. Biggest element and the biggest concern for the client is obviously the post-installation service and completion of the defects. We actually had a situation where these lifts were completed at different stages, but the warranty period started as each lift was completed. We discussed this with the lift contractor, and they cooperated with us to put us in a situation where we would have written into the performance specification that the warranty maintenance wouldn't commence for 12 months from the end of the last lift in the project. We managed to obviously work with the lift contractor and provide that additional protection for the client. The situation significantly for them as well is that they did have a lot of teething problems with the equipment when it first went into service. They were resolved, and now they have a 12-month period where they can get the benefit of the warranty and obviously get proof that the equipment now is in a fully operational condition and reliable condition. Biggest element that they did have a frustration with was that the lift contractor didn't have a local infrastructure from the after sales, so this put them under a lot of pressure as well as additional stress for the client. This would have been something we would have also analysed at the beginning of the project. So why do you need a lift consultant? What's the biggest thing, that element we could have contributed to this for the client? if we'd have been involved from the start of the procurement. We'd have made sure the equipment would have had a lifespan of 20 years. We haven't got that element with this equipment, even though it's been, you know, the equipment is compliant to code. It's not going to give them the this lifespan because the doors are a commodity product used more suitable for an office building, and there are some elements of the design as well where we have some, you know, with the durability of certain elements such as the drive machines, the suspension cables that hold the ropes that hold the lift and move the lift up and down the shaft as well off the motor, the electronic drive controls, and the landing and car door equipment. And based on our experience and the application, and obviously already data we're getting back from the amount of use for the lift, is we've got a situation where we feel that there's going to be significant investments going to be needed on these lifts in the next 8 to 10 years. Clearly, the client would not want that or have been expecting that after the significant outlay they've already made. Avoiding these estimated costs at today's price of roughly 125,000 per lift in that period. Saving at £500,000 approximately today's prices. So this is not so much maybe on regards to what we can do. We can obviously help avoid costs. We can obviously help control costs, making sure everything works within the budget that has been given, make sure that no variations are applied that aren't valid. But certainly from a point of view there, nobody would having a seven-figure expenditure on lifts would expect to think that in the next 10 years they potentially have to outlay a significant amount further. And that's where we would have provided the real benefit through from there. So hopefully I've demonstrated the value of the lift, of using a lift consultant on projects like this. And certainly in this point of view there, we would have certainly alleviated a lot of stress for the client. So before I turn over to our the next presentation on future trends, I'm just going to have a quick look at the question and answer, see if there's anything through from there. See if there's anybody got any questions about this. Hopefully I've not sent you to sleep. We haven't, so we're about to get into the last session for today. I'm going to talk about current and future trends in lift technology, and I'll turn it back over to Mark to continue with this presentation.
Thanks, Dennis. Okay, this is the last time you're going to hear from me. Don't all cheer at once. So basically, yeah, current and future trends in lift technology. We get asked a lot about smart building technology, smarter lifts, predictive maintenance, remote monitoring, and a little special one that Gabriel will present you, which is the space elevator. Smart buildings becoming more and more apparent. We have smart building consultants, we have smart building integration. What does that mean to a lift? Well, ultimately, it's your security. You know, you can see the Wi-Fi emblem there. Yes, we can fit Wi-Fi in lifts. Yes, you can have a connected, you know, you can stay connected by your phone, etc. It can be done. But ultimately, smart building tech is the integration of your security system with NFC, which is an app, you know, mobile phone technologies, and things like this. As it says here, can they be connected? Well, yes, they can. Unfortunately, they won't all be connected to every single system that you want. Okay. Some manufacturers, the majors, Schindler, Connie, etc., have their own systems, but they won't integrate directly with the system that you want. So we have to give them access to secure personal information, which again, GDPR, we can't do that. So every case needs to be looked at very, very carefully and considered, do we need to? All right. So first off the bat is really the layout of your building. If the lifts that 9 times out of 10 are located behind the secure line, you are already checking people's credentials. Now, do we integrate the barrier to the lift? Yes, we can. Okay, so when you swipe your card or present your phone, etc., it would allocate you a lift. This requires the user to be alert and check which lift they've been allocated to. This is via destination haul call, which we spoke about earlier. Okay, it doesn't particularly work with full collective, all right? But when you get that presentation, if not, we find in real terms, there's about 60 to 70% of people don't actually look, okay? So what happens is they then walk through to the lift core, they then reselect their floor and present their card again and etc. and get given a lift. Okay, they're okay. They've got their lift. They've gone up the building. But what you've effectively done now is duplicate the call on the system. So for that one person, they've now got 2 slots in the lift. So when the lift turns up, it's expecting 10 people to get in, but only 5 do or 4 do. And the system can then go, oh, hang on a minute, I'm not heavy enough. So it can wait, it can delay. There are delays on lifts if your photocell doesn't get broken enough times. And the weight of the car is monitored to see if that happens. So, you know, if you are going to integrate to the smart building tech, okay, what we need to do is review all of the building's use. Is it going to be a benefit to the user? One thing I will always say that lift technology, it's always behind other tech in the building, okay? And no more so than the smart building integration, okay? We are always, as an industry, behind. They are also, lift companies are very nervous about allowing access into the system in case it interrogates or corrupts the software, which is a safety issue. So they come back to the safety line. We, as a company, you know, we see this a lot, and ultimately, we know it doesn't do anything to the safety because it doesn't go into that hardwired into the algorithm type part of the controller. But that's what their concern is. So, you know, we can help, and we do a lot to assist to get the companies on board with that. But ultimately, is it going to give you a benefit? Okay. So if it's not, then we would be able to guide you and say, look, actually, we've got the barriers here. We'll put the security on there and we'll just call the lift normally, or we'll present the card at that point, okay, rather than actually integrating the barrier. But if you've got secure lobbies, you've got a secure entry point to the lift lobby, there doesn't seem much point in adding a further added complication of adding the lifts into that. Back of house goods lifts, we would always recommend it because otherwise the lift, you can never call it and it goes all over the place. But front of house on your haul call destination, your major groups into buildings, please always consider, where is the secure line? Is this going to work for us? Or are we just adding in another issue that when the building becomes live, the lifts aren't going to operate the way we've designed them to because the user is actually creating an error? You know? So I will leave you there on smart buildings. I will check the chat just in case. No, there's no questions on the chat. So I'm going to pass you over. To Matt and Dennis, who are going to talk to you further about smarter lifts.
Good afternoon, this is Matt talking. When we look at the future development of the major component producers, CAN systems is nothing new. A lot of manufacturers were using CAN systems, all with their own type of protocol, which caused issues with interfacing. And in recent years, all the major component manufacturers have agreed to sign up to a complete CAN open lift scenario with CIA 417. What does that mean for us? It means that all the components are easily interfaced with less wiring and adaptation required or sharing of protocols, making the production of new lifts a lot easier and swifter. But also gives us a benefit for future modernization and upgrades, allows us to add components in the future with very minimal labor-intensive work. In addition to this, the controller producers are now developing They're systems where you can get a remote access. And I think Gabriel went into some details with our Energy Plus system where you can get remote access. And all of the controllers will have this facility moving forward where you'll be able to see your portfolio in one glance, where you can see the reliability, the performance of each components, and also predicting what may need to be changed in the future. There'll be error logs, and not all error logs are recording failures. You will get warnings, which will allow you to potentially set up some email alerts to the maintenance company to go prepared for in the future, adjusting locks, providing new equipment to upgrade some components. For example, maybe you check in the duty cycle on the door operation, and you can predict when you're going to need to change rollers before they fail. Yeah, documentation is live, available, can be updated. Non-safety critical software updates can be done automatically. Any changes in the future where you're doing upgrades or modernization, the manufacturers can send the software directly to the controller. And when the work's taken out, it's simply an engineer who accepts the update. Again, reducing the downtime, the speed of installation, and a more reliable service. I think Dennis is going to take over from here. We'll check the chat in a minute.
Okay, thanks for that, Matt. So just following on from that point of view there, as the lifts become better at communicating, isn't life like that? But when everything talks to each other, things seem to work a lot better. How's that being developed further through from there? And what's the trend with regards to that? Well, the main trend about that is obviously that lifts now are designed and have incorporated these systems to the point where every single function of the lift is being analysed during its operation remotely. And that is feeding information back. Now it can be, and it's becoming the platform of all the multinationals with their installations of their lifts. And this is a potential service that they can offer from the maintenance point of view and the after sales. Clearly, one of the biggest benefits from this import of this information is product improvement. Somebody changes a design of something, we used to find out the hard way as engineers that somebody would update a design and find out there was a reliability issue caused by the fact that somebody decided to fit a different size of roller or a different size of bolt or pivot for something. And these are the sort of things, elements, while obviously keeping manufacturing as simple as possible and obviously cost effective, if it impacts on reliability, then the lift manufacturer can put these improvements in place to make the lifts more reliable. So certainly feedback based on this that's obviously provided by one multinational company. Clearly, some of this information is no surprise. 32% of issues on lifts relate to doors with their product. They're saying 22% of the issues that they have are to do with the control systems. None of these are any real big surprise to anybody with any experience with a lot of lifts, either as a building manager or portfolio manager, or to us as lift consultants. So the element about this is, where does this technology also can be used? And as Matt alluded to from there, the biggest element about it is for the lift to start to give you warnings that there's a potential component failure that will potentially take it out of service. And obviously downtime in a lot of buildings is obviously a big critical issue. You've got hotels, as Gabriel's pointed out in previous presentations. If you've got these devices and you've got an element where the building has got enough lifts for the capacity but hasn't got any built-in redundancy, i.e., the lift breaks down, the other lifts can cope with the traffic, then keeping these lifts operational at all times becomes very vital in these buildings. So if you have a lift that can effectively send information back to a central hub for it to be analysed by skilled people who can then allocate the engineer with the base of the task to say, you need to go, this is the problem, go and sort it out. So the engineer is not arriving on site trying to diagnose the problem. It's already pre-diagnosed for them before they get there. And if it's an element where it potentially could require parts, then they actually attend site with the relevant components. This obviously has a number of benefits, as well as the just-in-time element. Potentially, these repairs will be carried out before the lift reaches a critical failure, with downtime. But again, it reduces the number, number of visits to site. So the carbon footprint, and obviously all these other elements that and efficiency are obviously being improved upon. So this is the trend that's going to go through from there. And obviously, as I stated previously, is the platform now for all the multinational manufacturers to incorporate within it, and then provide that ability for the clients, obviously, to have access to it as well. So that's okay. So you're saying to me, Dennis, I've got to go and buy himself a new lift. I've all these fancy monitoring systems and all this. Well, there are obviously other alternatives for existing lifts. And this is where you would have a bolt-on system that doesn't interface directly with the lift. It will be an add-on, so you're not compromising any of the safety elements or the safety compliances of the type of lift, which obviously is a concern for manufacturers when equipment is installed to it from a monitoring point of view. So this is monitoring the functions of the equipment without actually directly interfacing with the control systems or the door equipment. So the traditional maintenance model is based on, you've got two things. Obviously, your reactive is when the lift is broken down, which is obviously causes the frustration and obviously the downtime. The maintenance model, traditional maintenance model, is to work on a planned preventative maintenance where periodic visits to the lifts are certain elements of the lift will be maintained during that periodic visit. So you wouldn't go to the lift and check every single item every time. You would do it over a set period and repeat that over a 12-month period, depending on when it became due based on a planned schedule. Obviously, preventative maintenance will improve reliability and keep elements through from there. But again, it will come down to, in some cases, potentially the quality of the equipment. The equipment may require more maintenance than is probably expected potentially through age. So moving towards something where there's a more predictive and proactive model is obviously beneficial through from there. And these bolt-on systems can provide these elements through from there, where you can, as Matt said on the previous slide, you can monitor the operation of the lift as a client and look at your portfolio and see where you are with regards to your portfolio lifts and their in-service time as well. So moving to a point where the system is measuring its operation and efficiency can give us to a more proactive approach. And this is certainly an element that we're starting to see going forward within it. It's going to have a fundamental change potentially in certain areas with regards to the PPM model we have at the moment, which is the tradition. And certainly from that point of view there, it's not going to be suitable for all applications and all contracts for it. There always will be a mandatory minimum requirement of visits. But again, if those visits were dictated to by specific tasks rather than preventative maintenance and hoping that you've covered any potential breakdowns, it's certainly going to improve the quality of the maintenance delivery going forward. So having a system that is monitoring its operation live all the time has got the ability to communicate back to a central hub for expertise to be analysed expertly, and then for an engineer then to be allocated for the specific task rather than you better go there and find out what's wrong with this lift, is certainly going to improve the efficiency of the lifts and the efficiency of the lift contractor to maintain your portfolio going forward. So just to end on a little bit of an interesting topic through from there, I'll turn you back over to Gabriel, who's got a very interesting video to share with you.
Hi there, thanks to Dennis and Matt for their valued contribution. So we thought we'd just end the session with more of a light-hearted contribution. That's me. I'm an absolute avid reader of science fiction, and we found a topic, a little video about the kind of latest developments in the space elevator that we thought might be more of a light-hearted into our session.
When historians look back at this time 500 years from now, they will put a breaking point right where we build a space elevator. This is pre-space, and this was post. This is an entire new society. Everything changes.
Imagine simply climbing a cable into space. No rocket. Just press the up button and you're there. The concept is known as the space elevator. Not only could it significantly change how we leave planet Earth, but it could also completely transform humanity's relationship with space. And there are scientists who think we could have already built it. Ideas of a space elevator type device extend as far back as the 19th century, but these ideas struggle to advance beyond the realms of science fiction as we continue to rely on tried and tested methods of getting into space.
Right now we've got rockets. They use a lot of fuel. They take a lot of fuel to get up into space. They have to carry fuel to lift the fuel to lift them into space. If you want to go to geosynchronous orbit, it's millions of dollars per pound if you want to go to the moon or Mars. It's expensive. With the space elevator, we reduce the cost of getting into space to dollars per pound.
So how does the space elevator even work? Basic idea is a cable would be pulled taut thanks to a counterweight. It stays vertical because the counterweight is thrown outward by the Earth's rotation and the base is held down by gravity. Early ideas suggested building a cable from Earth up into space, but the materials needed to withstand such enormous weight don't exist. Physicist Bradley Edwards breathed new life into the theory.
I've been working on the space elevator along with a number of other space systems and new technologies for the better part of 30 some years. I searched for years to find a reason why we couldn't build a space elevator. There was no reason.
The problem with earlier versions of the space elevator was we just didn't have a way to build the cable that was needed to maintain a space elevator. And Brad came up with an innovative twist, looking into the future on where carbon nanotubes might go in terms of strength.
Carbon nanotubes are something of a super material. Despite their tiny size, they're theoretically stronger than things like Kevlar or graphene. Brad Edwards suggested launching a rocket which would carry the carbon nanotube cable. One end of the cable would then be dropped back towards Earth. The cable would be light enough and strong enough to build just a thin ribbon which robots could climb to build more ribbon, eventually becoming strong enough to carry heavy payloads, such as solar panels, satellites, and even tourists. So what about the cost of carbon nanotubes? Is this the biggest hurdle?
Literally, in our system, it costs us about $1 a gram. And we need about 1,000 tons to build the first space elevator. But when you talk about building a space elevator for a total of $8 billion, we easily spend that money launching satellites. It's not that expensive.
There's an estimated 128 million objects smaller than a centimeter orbiting the Earth, along with another 900,000 that measure 1 to 10 centimeters, all with the potential to cause significant damage. Brad Edwards' concept would see a space elevator mounted to a mobile oil rig-like structure to dodge any dangerous material.
It's really hard to imagine that you could have a space elevator that could survive the number of collisions that one would expect over the lifetime of a space elevator. And, you know, if the ribbon's cut, you're having a bad day.
Again, we're talking about ribbon, 3 feet wide, thin as paper. If you break the top part off, the counterweight, what happens is the ribbon starts to come down, it breaks at the bottom, and the entire ribbon flies out into space, never to be seen again.
I would love to be proven wrong. If we had a space elevator, it would be awesome. It would be paradigm changing.
We can colonize the moon, the Mars. We can go to the asteroids cheaply, and we can mine them for minerals, metals that we're running out of now here on Earth. It's changed from back in 1998, it was science fiction, you know, capturing asteroids, bringing them in, building large cables. And now we have it. And we probably could have started building it 10 years ago.
It's prone to overhyped and sometimes bubbles. Does any area
So, space elevator, science fiction or science fact? That's the end of our presentation. I would like to thank Dennis and Matt and Mark for their valued and interesting contributions. And I would like to thank those participants who sat through it. We can be contacted individually, or you can get in contact with us through our website, www.theliftconsultancy.co.uk, and for the LiftEnergy Plus device, www.liftenergyplus.com. And once again, thank you for attending, and hopefully hear from you soon. Thanks. Bye. Thank you for the record on this.